Hello, and welcome back to Triple Coverage. Unfortunately, we're going to run the cover two all day today. Um, Little Tampa because we're missing our amigo. But me and Sam have the knowledge that you need for your rookie mock draft coming up in Dynasty. And yes, I am using my wireless controller as a microphone. It's good. Don't hate. All right. Sam, are you excited for the rookie mock draft?
It's my favorite time of year, honestly, where I get to, watch guys come out of college and kind of apply it to Dynasty. So I'm very much excited for this year. Maybe not all of the players, but a few.
Yeah, it's the time where you can think you know everything about who's coming out of college, and then we find out that we're wrong about almost all of our opinions. But we are gonna get started with the rookie mock draft that we have set up today. We're gonna try and get through all four rounds. Might take a while. I'm hoping we can get through, especially the first picks in a quick amount of time. But hopefully we can keep this short and sweet and get you the knowledge you need. So, Sammy, you want to start it off?
Yeah, I'll start it off. I think right now I'm not going to change kind of the consensus, which is that the best player in this draft and the best player going at the 101 is obviously going to be Jeremiah Love. He's just a guy that is sort of that generational prospect of this entire draft class, which is kind of unfortunate in a way because while there's still some other good players, he's sort of like the only tier one player of the draft, I would say. Kind of like a surefire. Hope that he succeeds. Um, but excited to see where he lands, and that'll be really telling too about his fantasy production primarily coming out, year one. Some running backs don't necessarily have good production, just like Ashton Genty. So we'll see. But depending where he lands, he could easily be like a dynasty RB1 right away. So we'll see. But Jeremiah Love is the pick here.
Yeah, just add one thing, especially with the landing spots. The three main ones. All right, I'm running out of time already on this mock draft. Can you pause it, please? um,
It's it didn't start.
oh, I got like the ticker. And anyways, never mind. Um, I just want to say that he basically has three really good landing spots and one, you could argue, bad landing spot in the first 10 picks and where he's supposed to go. Like the good landing spots would be Tennessee, Cincinnati, and Washington. The bad landing spot would be the New York Giants. I don't understand how the Giants could ever pick this dude, but Emeka Egbuka was picked to a really crowded wide receiver room. So anything is possible, but as long as he goes to a team that is going to use him as their primary running back, yeah, no problems whatsoever. With the second pick, so it kind of depends on what you need because we have Fernando Mendoza and then obviously the three receivers, and I'm gonna add a fourth in Casey Concepcion to my list of top receivers in this class based on his tape and how great of a guy he is, basically. But I think, based on safety and picking the a young player at a necessary position, I'm gonna go Carnell Tate with my second pick. He just has his tape is impeccable. You know, he's obviously not the leading wide receiver on his own team in college, but when you're basically playing against the best player in college football when he was a freshman in Jeremiah Smith, it's really hard to compete with that. But, you know, being the second leading target getter on his team, um, playing with a rookie quarterback this year, improving each year that he has been on the field. He's just a solid pick. He's going to get drafted in the top 10, have that capital, and he's really shown no signs of being a bad player.
Yeah, I would. I don't mind the pick. I don't have Carnell Tate as my wide receiver one, but I understand why people do. I think for me the issue is when projecting him into the NFL. He's probably going to be a good wide receiver, based on NFL standards, but just based on or basing it off of fantasy, I think there's a chance that he's more like your typical X receiver, and his opportunities aren't exactly more so you'll see out of like a true wide receiver one alpha type that can move around the field. And depending, on his landing spot, that'll be big as well because if he does land in some place like Miami, they probably will have him move all over the field. So he could actually produce pretty well there. But yeah, Carnell Tate's he's a guy that I think only scares me a little bit because of his lack of production. Yes, I understand he played with a lot of great players, but Marv was also a really good college player, and so far people think he's not so good in the NFL. So I think he kind of gives me a little bit of Marvin Harrison vibes, a little bit. So that part scares me, especially because I picked Marv second overall before. We'll see. But so for me, I'm gonna take my wide receiver one now at pick three, which is none other than Mekhi Lemon. And the reason I really like this guy is because he's someone you flip on the tape, he looks great. You look at the analytics, it all says that he's a good wide receiver. The only concerns anyone has is his size and potential athletic limitations. But I feel like we've seen this before, and I wouldn't say he's less athletic than someone like a Mecca Buka or maybe even a JSN. They're all sort of not straight line speedsters. They're more agility based wide receivers who can get in and out of breaks really well. I've seen Mekhi Lemon's tape. He's probably one of the best decelerators in this class, as into switching routes and getting in and out of breaks. So I think it'll play whatever team drafts him, it'll play towards his favor. And I think that's why he could easily be like a volume hog type receiver, and production wise, I think he has the highest ceiling. So that's why he's my wide receiver one.
Yeah, it's definitely a tough pick between these two in the first for the first real conundrum of the draft. And for the fourth pick, I'm going to switch it up. I know I was talking about the other receivers, Jordan Tyson and KC, but I think I'm going to go Fernando Mendoza. And let me just give a quick rundown on why. Fernando is going to be the number one overall pick. He's going to sit behind the encyclopedia of knowledge, Kirk Cousins, on the Raiders. He's going to have a solid group of receivers, and you might think, oh, the receivers are bad in Las Vegas. That's true. But their number one receivers, obviously, Brock Bowers, who is, incredible as a football player. He's just literally been the best performing rookie tight end ever. And then last year, obviously, he had a couple injuries, but they've revamped the offensive line. They're still going to fill out the wide receiver room and offensive line in the draft. The Raiders are. They got a new OC, Clint Kubiak, as head coach. So there's just so many positive signs for the Raiders. They're going to also, unlock Ashton Genty more, hopefully in the receiving game. Basically, the main story about Mendoza is that he's a solid pick. Well, I think the other players in this draft have a lot of a lot more negatives than we see in specifically Carnell Tate, Mekhi Lemon, and Jordan Love that have already been picked. So I want the safety of a, you know, not going to be a QB1 on my roster, but is going to be a solid QB2 with, a little bit of rushing upside.
And just to go with that, I actually do like Fernando Mendoza a lot. There is the possibility that if he figures out the game faster, he could easily be not only the starting quarterback, but actually sort of like their franchise QB. I don't know how high he gets dynasty wise. Like he could get as high as like a quarterback 7, something like that is what I've seen, which I could agree with. It definitely depends, and he does kind of have some rushing upside. You've seen it before in his play, but he's sort of a safe pick here at 4. Um, Going to pick 5, we're going to stay with the wide receivers again, and this guy is definitely a controversial player, but it's more so because of the injuries, and you already know who it is. It's Jordan Tyson. Jordan Tyson, he's one of those guys you can easily film to his highlights and just say he's the best wide receiver in this class, as well as looking at his early breakout age, which usually correlates pretty well with NFL success. And there's a chance he easily could be the wide receiver 1 coming out of this year's draft, but the injuries are definitely a big knock and would kind of want you to lean away from that. But you can't not give up that potential ceiling that he has as a wide receiver 1, and he has some better chances also to get on a decent team, I think, with maybe potentially dropping in the draft. So we'll see if he gets matched up with a good QB. He might even climb up my ranks a little bit.
I don't have much else to add specifically about Jordan Tyson, but I think comparing him to the sixth player that we're going to put on the board, and that is KC Concepcion. I think this is a huge, these two are also very interesting picks to have right next to each other because we see a lot of analysts in the industry starting to, nudge KC higher and higher in their rookie ranks. The guys from Underdog Fantasy, they have KC as their number 2 receiver. Matt Harmon from Reception Perception has him as his my guy. I mean, he's a great route runner. He's, while he's not the biggest receiver, being 5'11", 195, I believe, 196, he gets a lot of, what do you call it, Sammy? Separation. That's what it is.
Separation, yeah.
Very, very good at separating. And we're going to be able to track that more definitively in the NFL, of course. But I think the upside with KC, once he figures out his drop issues and maybe some consistency in his route running, that he will be a solid receiver that is going to be a great addition to a team. There's a lot of teams that, just like these other receivers, they could be the number 1 right when they get in with the team. If KC goes to a team like the Ravens or the Dolphins, he's immediately their number 1. And that comes with a lot of upside and a large amount of the target share.
Yeah, Mitch and I have had some discussions about Casey, and while we kind of differ, I do agree that he's kind of a rare athlete in the sense of he's really good at separating as a wide receiver. He's good all over the field, really, of getting open, and he has the juice to do so. The only problem with me with Casey is that he's not particularly good at finding soft spots in zone. I think a lot of times from tape I've seen, he almost seems scared, and so my comp actually for Casey is sort of like Brian Thomas Jr. light. And that's because, we saw how great Brian Thomas Jr. was at separating his first year, and, he's doing a lot of vertical routes, great separation. Really fast dude. Except, second year we really noticed the flaw in his game, which is he can't catch the football in tight coverage. He can't come down with grabs and contested situations, even though Casey really hasn't had an issue with that either. He's kind of just average, sort of like Brian, but when everything goes wrong, it doesn't look good and it's very frustrating. So I think there's a chance that Casey can be a player like that. And it kind of brings me to the next pick as well. This guy is actually, I think, more of a developmental player than people want to acknowledge, and it's because he's so young. And that's the first tight end off the board here. It's Kenyon Sadiq. He's 21, I believe, coming into the draft, and he hasn't really played as much as you would hope, and the production isn't really there either, but he is an athletic freak, and we saw that at the combine. I think there is a team that's going to bite on him and hope that they can develop him into, one of those freak tight end athletes that can do everything, block, get open down the field, even be a yak threat. He's easily a player who could find a potential like that. It is concerning though that some of his analytics don't really show that, and he's even been outpaced in yards by a fellow tight end this year as well at Oregon. So we'll see. Hopefully the athleticism takes over, but yeah, he's going to be my 107 here.
Yeah, did you know he's from Idaho? That's so interesting.
I'm not.
Anyways, I was really hoping you didn't pick Kenyon Sadiq. He's not my favorite prospect, being that he didn't have a ton of college accolades. He even lost out on the best tight end award to another tight end in this draft class, which is concerning. I mean, the dude's a freak athlete, which is what we usually see in great NFL tight ends. And I think that's kind of all he has going. That's all he has going for him in my perspective. I obviously see why people like him. I mean, yeah, he was playing behind really good tight ends when he is coming out of college. So, I mean, he has upside galore, basically. I'm personally going to go back to wide receivers with my A pick, and I will pick Omar Cooper. I really don't have too much to say about Omar. I haven't dug deep into his stats, um, but the reason why he's a back of the first round pick for me is most likely, or mostly because he's the second leading receiver on his team, which is a red flag for me, especially when we're going to be drafting him later in this mock draft, the number one receiver. I mean, he was with the best quarterback in this draft class, probably a top 2 or 3 quarterback in college football. They run a great scheme for their wide receivers to get open. Like I said, I don't have too much in the noggin about this guy, but he's clearly going to get really good draft capital, which is a primary indicator of being a good fantasy football player. But he's got a smaller frame than I would like as well for a player of what he is supposed to be going to be able to do in the pros, because since people are comparing him to Deebo Samuel, I personally don't see it at all. Deebo is one of my favorite players, and Omar is just, I mean, he's incredible at breaking tackles. We see that on tape, but nobody's going to be Deebo, and so I would just rather have Omar Cooper more than all these guys we have left in the draft, because it really falls off a cliff after the next pick or two.
Yeah, I'd also like Cooper here. He's pretty decent analytically, and who knows how much that can be associated for Fernando Mendoza is doing. I know we skipped a little bit, but I picked Nicholas Singleton. I think he's a really good running back. He's not given credit for his receiving ability and how athletic he is. Yeah, he probably doesn't have like the lateral movement you want to see, but he's one of those one cut guys and he's off, which is pretty good in the NFL if he can get an open hole. So if he ends up on a good team, like a good O line, and can find way onto the field, then I think there's a chance that he can produce this year, and that's why I'm gonna pick him at 203.
Do you have a good player comp for him? I feel like I haven't heard one.
I don't know if I have a good player comp for Nick Singleton. He's more just like a I don't know. I think he's almost like a Tyler Algier type, if that makes sense. He could probably get the work done, but he's not one of those like Bijan Robinson joystick, kind of players. He's more like a one cut behind a good line kind of guy. Could be efficient when given chances, can still catch the football. I think he kind of pans out to be someone sort of like that.
Gotcha. It, I think it's so interesting that players like Nick Singleton are so highly touted. It because Katron looks so much better in the Penn State offense than Nick did. They both had insane production early on in their careers. They definitely helped each other out, but I mean, yeah, with the passing game upside, I think Nick is a great pick at this point.
Yeah, and since we're in the PPR drafts, you gotta find that receiving upside.
Oh yeah. All right. I will take my pick in the fourth of the second round, and I will pick Chris Bell. This is a super high upside pick. The dude played at Louisville, and just watching the tape, his crossers over the middle were spectacular. Um, he was outrunning everybody on the field, and there's not much to say about him. Since he got injured, he wasn't able to compete at the combine. It's definitely going to be landing spot dependent. Let's hope he doesn't go to San Francisco or the Ravens that have bad injury histories, but he's going to get a chance in the NFL to show what he's got. And he could have been up with Omar Cooper and Denzel Boston, as those back of the first round picks if he didn't end up getting hurt in his final season at Louisville.
Yeah, Chris Bell, I don't have much to say about either. I haven't watched too much tape, but from what I've heard, he's definitely more like a shallow crosser type. Like your Rasheed Rice kind of player, which if an offense needs, he could easily fit that. But coming off that ACL tear, see how long it takes for him to recover. Definitely like kind of one of the meaner wide receivers in this group, and I mean that in like he's kind of got that dog in him, like he'll bark at another player if he plows him over type. So you like seeing the play like that, and Chris Bell's an easy guy to root for, but I just feel like sometimes he can almost look a little Jonathan Mingo. So we'll see how he pans out.
Yeah, it might be more of a
Uh,
roof guy than a ceiling guy, if you know what I mean.
I'm speechless. Anyways, uh, with the 205, I'm also going to go with another athletic freak here. Sticking with running back for myself, we're going with Mike Washington, and this guy's really just an upside pick. He's one of those athletic freaks. Obviously, we all saw the combine testing. He's a guy who actually ended up doing the three cone and agility drills at his pro day, which, respect to him because he was at like a 10 RAS prior to doing that. Uh, but put on the tape, and the guy has some good highlights. He can miss some tackles if he wants to. The problem is he's one of those big guys who just like running through, which I respect.
What do you
Uh,
say,
but
Derrick
he's
Henry style? You
yeah,
know.
a little bit, yeah. The issue between Mike Washington and Derrick Henry is that Derrick Henry can actually see what's coming
Mm-hmm.
through the holes. Mike Washington's vision is not there, and it's something he would have to work on. For me, the vibe is a little more Jalen Wright. If you remember that player, the Dolphins actually um, traded up to go get Jalen Wright, but he was an athletic freak, super fast, could easily hit a hole if it was there. His problem is he could never see the hole. And that's unfortunately, I think, an issue that Mike Washington could have as well. But that is something that can be developed, and we'll see if that athletic upside can really help him in the NFL.
Yep. I agree. This guy has two paths, and they are the top of the world or the bottom of the ocean. All right.
Well said,
For
Mitch.
Thank you. With the sixth pick of the second round, I'm going to keep it nice and simple and maybe go off the board a little bit. I will go Jeremy Bernard. One, love his name. Two, I I really enjoyed watching him this year. He's, not the most spectacular wide receiver, but he always seems to be in the right spots. And with the primarily zone defense these NFLs are running, he definitely has a role on any team he goes to as a zone beater. He just didn't get much help from his quarterback this year, in my opinion. They were having a lot of issues with their wide receiver room, so Jeremy had to step up in the absence of Ryan Williams at Alabama. And so I think he got to show what he's good at. He had to be a top receiver for the team, and a lot of NFL teams seem to like what he's got going on, and that's all I have to say about him. He's not a ceiling play. He's a table play. He's not on the floor, but he's a little bit above the floor. So I'm just I'm just okay with him. Well, there's a couple of other players that have higher probabilities of flopping coming up in the draft.
Well, it's Mitch. You talk about a guy who's good at beating zone, and actually the next player I'm going to take is probably better at doing that than Jeremy Bernard, and that player is Elijah Surratt. This guy
You trying
is
to one
is
up
one
me?
of those. Exactly, that was actually the point. This guy, this guy is one of those dudes who just has a football IQ. He knows where to sit in soft spots. He knows even how to beat man coverage a lot of times more than people want to admit. And just showing that his career yards per route run is sitting at a nice 2.6. Man specifically is sitting at a 3, and zone is at a 2.77. So this guy doesn't mess around. And yeah, he's had some help with his quarterback play, but there's a good chance that he can succeed in the NFL. He's not a super athletic guy, I understand that, but he's got the production and he's got the moxie to him. He's the IQ, and I think he could easily be a good starting wide receiver too in the NFL.
Agreed. I really liked Elijah Surratt. He just always seemed to, catch the ball when it was thrown his way. I feel like he was super consistent in that way, and it's just so funny that Omar Cooper, who was the number two on the team, is going a whole round ahead of this guy in our rookie mock draft. With the eighth pick of the second round, it's hard to choose. I mean, this is where I would use all my time in picking somebody, see how it fits into my team. I'm gonna go a little off the board again and go with Max Clare. This is a predominantly receiving tight end. You know, an effective blocker, better than the two tight ends picked before him, meaning he'll be on the field more than them. He also has great production in his first seasons at Purdue. And while obviously he didn't have the greatest production at Ohio State, that's obviously understandable given Carnell Tate and Jeremiah Smith being around him. The the reason why I like Max Clare, I mean, especially at this part of the draft, is the dude's gonna get picked on day two. NFL teams, they crave the tight end position. You see all these blocking tight ends getting money. Um, Isaiah Likely got paid a ton of money. Even when they had a decent tight end already in the building, all these teams want at least two starting level tight ends in the blocking and receiving category. I think Max Clare is a day one plug and play player on almost any team he goes to. And just for example, let's say the Eagles draft Max Clare in the second or third round. I think, based on that depth chart, he's getting solid playing time behind Dallas Goedert. With Goddard being older, and that's just an example of a landing spot. But obviously, there's better landing spots out there as well. So I think, at this point in the draft, picking a solid tight end that's gonna see the field is a great pick. What do you think?
I haven't seen much about Max Clare. I haven't done too much of a deep dive into the tight end class because I think actually the tight end class is pretty weak considering some of the classes we've had previously. They've kind of spoiled us a little bit. So Max Clare, I've heard
Well, it's
some
weak at
good
the
things.
top, definitely.
Yeah,
I would say that.
but there's some guys I actually do like tight end wise later on in the draft that are more sleepers, but Max Clare isn't a guy I've gotten to, so I don't really know, but I've heard some good things and that he could easily be like a solid starting tight end in the league. So I'll take your word there, Mitch. But for me, I'm going to go with a little
Thank you.
more upside in this next pick. And that's going to be Zachariah Branch. I understand that this guy is a gadget player, but man, does he have the quick twitch still. And there's a reason why he has the most receptions in Georgia's history for a wide receiver, and that's because, yeah, it's line of scrimmage A dot, but uh, the guy just knows how to find space in the open field. He knows how to get yards after the catch, and he's this quick twitch athlete that is just a rarity. I've seen people kind of compare him to like Tyreek Hill in a way, which maybe he's not there fully. Maybe he needs to find a way to increase his route tree and get better at route running specifically to really succeed in the NFL. But if that upside does hit, the sky's the limit for a super rare athlete like that. So I'm gonna take Zachariah Branch here.
Agreed. I'll keep it simple and just pick Chris Brazel with my next pick. Most likely the best tight wide receiver we see coming out of Tennessee recently. We all know that they run a funky offense, but Chris Brazel definitely has more capabilities than these other receivers that have gone previously. In his old college tape at Tulane, he was lining up on both sides of the field, lining up tight to the line of scrimmage. He has more capabilities. He's able to play a couple different positions at receiver. The dude is fast. He's big. He's better than Dante Thornton, who we obviously like. He's a very similar size to Dante and everything, but he just has a more complete package of skills.
Yeah, Chris Brazel, Mitch, is a guy that I'm actually really concerned about. Yeah, he's not necessarily the typical Tennessee mold wide receiver, but the issue I have with Chris Brazzell is that he's one of those receivers that's only lined up on one side of the field the entire time at Tennessee, or actually I think his entire career really, but definitely at Tennessee. I think specifically this year, I forget which side he was primarily lined up. Maybe it was the right,
It was the
but
right.
yeah. So the left side he was lined up 4 times the entire season, 4 times.
I wonder
I
how
don't
he
know
did.
what he's trying to hide. I don't know what he's trying to hide, but that is just a red flag that we've seen with other wide receivers who, potentially look good but just don't pan out in the NFL because they don't know, how to switch their routes directionally, just do the opposite. But it's a hard thing for them. And Chris Brazzell also has some character concerns and have some off-field issues. So Chris Brazzell is one of on my don't draft list, and it's not even because he's a Tennessee wide receiver. So I'm a little bit skeptical with this. We'll see how it pans out. Maybe he'll prove us all wrong. Maybe the off-field problems are just a sign he's actually just a wide receiver diva and he's destined for greatness. Who knows? But that's
Get,
why I'm going to switch to a
I,
running
I was
back
just
in
gonna
my
say,
next pick. Oh,
give, yeah. Mind if I say one thing?
go for it, Mitch.
I mean, given what Rashi Rice has done, I mean, this guy has, he like pushed an old lady down,
Yeah, it's normal for guys to just push old ladies down, when they get in your way. That's just a normal thing. So we'll see what Chris Brazzell does in the NFL. He'll maybe try to push some normal guys down, maybe from the back, get a flag. We'll see. Anyways, I'm gonna go with running back my next pick here, and that's gonna be Katron Allen. I know
Damn
I was
it.
talking up Nick Singleton before, but Katron also was super productive in Penn State's offense, especially this last year. And he was actually graded as the second best rusher behind Jeremiah Love, I believe. And he's just one of those guys that is a little scary because he didn't really do any of the athletic testing, probably for a good reason because he's not that fast. He's probably not super agile, but he knows how to get through tackles and see holes at the line of scrimmage. It kind of reminds me of like a Devin Neal. This guy, because when Devin Neal came out last year, yeah, he's kind of playing for the Saints, kind of playing for that starting spot. I understand, but Devin wasn't really like known as a super athlete at all, and he was kind of just known as a guy who got production and will probably make it work at the NFL level, but he's just not this super athlete. I think I see Katron Allen in a similar light, but uh, who knows if he finds a way where he can get playing time, he might be a guy again that they just might not want to take off the field because he's a consistent, reliable player. Maybe not really a good receiving back, but good between the tackles. And who doesn't love the name Fat Man, right? Isn't that his nickname, Mitch?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so I'm gonna stick with Fat Man here and hope he can carry me.
Yeah, I mean, I like Katron, especially at this price. I mean, the end of the second round. Hopefully, he goes, decently high in the NFL draft, but he's definitely a valuable player to add to a backfield. All right, for the final pick of the second round, and this is going to be the final pick of the day. You're going to have to come back for rounds 3 through 4. We're going to get into the nitty gritty, do a little more research. It's going to be exciting. But the last pick I'm going to make is Jacoby Lane out of USC, the number 2 to Makai Lemon's number 1. A couple of good things that Jacoby Lane has done. One, he declared for the NFL draft early. Always something we want to look for in players. But also, I think that he's basically a discounted Elijah Surratt in the fact that he's going to be get picked later, most likely in the NFL draft. He's going to get picked later in your fantasy drafts. But he has a very similar play style. He has great hands as well. And although he doesn't have the greatest production, we like to, as fantasy analysts, as me and Sam are, we like to look at the competition that they have on their own team when scouting these players. And I believe Miller Moss was the quarterback, Sam, right?
Yep.
And he transferred from LSU last year, if I believe.
I actually don't know.
Okay. I think so because I think I remember watching him during a fantasy draft. Anyways, I don't really know where I was going there, but Jacoby Lane is a solid player who had a great receiver on his team that took over that number one role. But Jacoby, he was the solid number two option. He was always available for his team. And I think you're just really getting value with this pick. Yeah, that's all I have.
Yeah, Mitch, I don't mind the Jacoby Lane pick at all, actually. I think he's actually pretty undervalued. He easily could be a wide receiver that kind of comes into his own and finds a little bit better route running. He has the ability to kind of move. Um, it's not the best right now. He definitely has some more straight line speed, as we saw with his combine numbers, but the thing you love about a guy like this is his ability to get up and get jump balls. His hand size is crazy, and he's one of those guys who can literally jump up and grab something one-handed out of the air. That's a rare ability. And really, if he worked on just his route running and some of his breaks, I think he could be a really good wide receiver in the NFL. He has the athletic ability. He has the size, especially like I said, the hand size. And if he develops into a good receiver, I wouldn't be surprised at all. So, and just remember, Jacoby Lane was a guy who people were more excited about this year prior to Mekhi Lemon being the wide receiver one. They
Yep.
thought Jacoby Lane was going to be the wide receiver one. So I think that's just more of a testament to how good Lemon is. I'm obviously very high on Lemon, but I think Jacoby Lane could easily be a good wide receiver as well.
Yep, it shows a little bit of a transfer in what is happening in college and the NFL because I feel like you're right. The roles would be switched if it was 10 years ago. They'd be wanting to give, Jacoby Lane, the 6'4", 200-pound monster, a ton of opportunity instead of Mekhi. But now they're realizing that, Mekhi's targets are so valuable because he's so quick and open. So.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, that is the end for our 2-round draft. Apologize for the technical delays, but sometimes that happens. And do you have any final words, Sam?
I'd just like to say that Chris Brazel is on my do not draft list again. I just want to let everyone know that. Thank you.
Well, unfortunately, someone has to draft the felons, but let us know who had the better draft, me or Sam. I think we know who the answer is, but we want to hear it in the comments. And that is all. Thank you for watching. Have a good one.